Welcome to the Deep Dive, your personal shortcut to getting up to speed on complex topics. We sift through the details so you get the essential insights nice and clear. Today, we are diving headfirst into the, let's say, sometimes confusing world of immigrant visa availability. Specifically, we're comparing the August 2025 and the September 2025 Visa Bulletins side by side. Now, these bulletins are basically the official roadmap for folks in the immigration process. They dictate when things can move forward based on your priority date, your spot in line, essentially. We'll be looking closely at things like final action dates, that's when a visa can actually be issued, and dates for failing, which tell you when you can get your paperwork started. Understanding how these dates shifted or didn't shift between August and September is really key. Crucial, actually, whether you're in the thick of it or just trying to understand how it all works.
That's absolutely right. These bulletins, they're not just abstract numbers, they give direct instructions, telling applicants when to submit documents, when to file for adjustment of status. So today we're zeroing in on what changed between August and September, what stayed the same, which can be just as telling, and crucially, why any of that matters as we move towards the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture then, the foundational numbers. What changed in the overall landscape, the sort of basic limits on visas?
Well, there was a pretty significant clarification for employment-based visas. In the August bulletin, the worldwide annual limit was stated as at least 140,000. Kind of vague, right?
At least, yeah, leave some room.
Exactly. But for September, that number was locked in and actually increased to 150,037.
Ah, so a solid number and higher.
Precisely. That's an extra 10,037 visas. It might not sound massive in the grand scheme, but that means thousands more skilled workers and their families potentially getting good news sooner. It definitely provides more certainty.
Okay, and sticking with those top-level numbers, what about the limits for dependent areas? Did they follow suit?
Yes, a similar pattern, though smaller scale. The dependent area limit was 7,320 in August. For September, it ticked up slightly to 7,521.
A small increase, but still an increase.
Right. Every little bit helps. And what's also interesting, the September bulletin laid out the official fiscal year 2025 numerical limits much more explicitly than August did. It confirmed the family-sponsored worldwide limit at 226,000 and cemented that employment-based number at 150,037. Getting that full finalized accounting is quite important for planning.
So with those worldwide numbers firmed up, how did that ripple down into the per-country limits? Did those get more precise too, especially thinking about things like visa carryover?
Yes, and that's a really important detail. The September bulletin breaks it down. Under the Basic Law, the Immigration and Nationality Act, the per-country limit for FY 2025 is set at 26,323. The dependent area limit, 7,521. But, and this is key thanks to carryover provisions, where unused visas get redistributed, those numbers actually expand. The effective per-country limit becomes 26,862, and the dependent area limit goes up to 7,675.
Ah, so the system tries to maximize usage. That carryover makes a real difference then.
It absolutely does. It means more available slots than the base numbers suggest. It's about efficiency.
Got it. Any other sort of high-level numerical tweaks between the two bulletins? Anything maybe a bit more obscure?
There's one more small, specific one for the other workers category. There's an annual reduction because of the NACRA program, the Nicaraguan and Central American Relief Act. In August, that reduction was estimated at about 150 visas for FY 2025. In September, they nailed it down to a precise 106, so it just shows how specific laws filter down into these numbers.
Okay, let's pivot now to the family-sponsored side. Always a lot of interest here. What were the key movements in the final action dates between August and September? You know, the dates that actually let people get their visas.
Right. So in the F2B category, that's unmarried sons and daughters of permanent residents, we saw some specific country movement. Mexico's final action date jumped forward 3 months, from January 1st, 2007 to April 1st, 2007.
3 months? That's decent progress.
It is. And for the Philippines in F2B, a smaller step, but still forward. From April 15th, 2012 to May 1st, 2012. About 15 days. Still meaningful for those waiting.
Definitely. And what about F3? That's married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens.
Okay, here's where things got quite exciting, particularly for the Philippines. The F3 final action date leaped forward 5 whole months.
5 months? Wow.
From December 1st, 2003 in the August bulletin, straight to May 1st, 2004 in September. For people stuck in that queue for, potentially close to 2 decades, a 5-month jump is huge news. It could really change things for families.
Absolutely life-changing. Now, did we see similar action in the dates for filing for family categories? The dates that let people get their paperwork ready?
We did. For the F2A category spouses and children of permanent residents, the dates for filing advanced 2 months across the board for all countries. It went from April 1st, 2025 to June 1st, 2025.
Okay, opening the door for more people to start the process.
Exactly. And mirroring the final action date movement, F3 for the Philippines also saw a 5-month jump in its date for filing. Moved from December 1st, 2004 up to May 1st, 2005.
So significant movement for F2A globally and F3 Philippines on both charts. But it sounds like other major family categories like F1 and F4 and F2B outside Mexico and the Philippines kind of held steady.
That's right. For many categories, things remain consistent between August and September. So you have pockets of significant advancement, but also areas of stability, which gives a clear, if sometimes frustrating, picture for those applicants.
Right. Stability isn't always good news if your date isn't moving. Okay, let's switch lanes to employment-based visas. This is often where we see a lot of fluctuation, talk of dates moving backward, retrogression.
Wow.
What happened here between August and September?
Well, this is actually one of the biggest takeaways, and it's quite striking. For all employment-based preferences across all countries, there were 0 changes.
Zero. None at all.
None. The final action dates chart and the dates for filing chart were identical for employment-based categories in September compared to August. Everything stayed exactly the same.
That is really remarkable, especially heading into the final month of the fiscal year. You'd almost expect some adjustments, wouldn't you?
You really would. It suggests perhaps very careful management of the remaining numbers to make them last right up to the finish line without needing drastic action like retrogression. Now, the September Bulletin did update its general advice. August had specific warnings about potential retrogression for EB2, rest of world, maybe EB3 and other workers becoming unavailable, and potential EB5 advancements for China and India. September sort of consolidated that. It noted a steady increase in demand patterns across the board throughout the year and basically said they expected most categories to hit their limits in August or September. It felt like a more general heads up about high demand overall, rather than pinpointing specific categories for imminent changes.
So less specific warnings, more of a general, demand is high, we're nearing the end message. Interesting.
Precisely.
Okay, let's look at the diversity visa program then, the DV lottery numbers. These can jump around quite a bit. What happened with DV 2025 numbers moving from August to September?
Significant advancements there, really pushing to use the available numbers before the year ended. For Africa generally, the cutoff went from 50,000 up to 58,500. Algeria moved from just under 50,000 to 54,500. Egypt saw a big jump from 43,250 to 52,000.
Wow, those are substantial increases, especially for Egypt. That opens the door for quite a few more people right at the end.
It really does. Same story in Asia. The general cutoff moved from 11,000 to 14,500. Iran edged up from 10,650 to 11,000. Nepal leaped from 10,650 to 14,450.
Another big jump for Nepal.
Huge. Europe's general cutoff went from 22,000 to 23,000. Russia from 21,950 to 22,950. Uzbekistan from 13,000 to 15,000. Even Oceania saw a bump from 1,700 to 1,775. And South America Caribbean from 2,600 to 2,825. North America, meaning the Bahamas, stayed current.
Exactly. The September Bulletin also gives us the starting numbers for the next program year, DV 2026, which begin in October. And you see a massive reset.
Back down to low numbers again. Way down. Africa starts DV 2026 at 17,500. Asia starts at 10,000. It's a stark visual of how a new fiscal year brings a fresh allocation and the cycle begins again. Oh, and one final DV detail. The annual limit for DV 2025 itself got a tiny final adjustment. August said it was reduced to approximately 52,000. September firmed that up to exactly 52,056 after accounting for all the relevant laws. It just shows the level of precision involved.
Okay, so we've gone through the specific changes, but maybe stepping back for someone less familiar.
Yeah.
What are the basic mechanics here? Why do these dates move, or sometimes why don't they move?
Well, the fundamental idea is processing applications based on their priority date when they were filed. Think of it like a queue. But there's a limited number of visas available each year, divided by category and by country. When the number of people waiting in line for a specific category or from a specific country exceeds the number of visas available, that category becomes oversubscribed.
Like too many people wanting tickets for a sold-out show.
Exactly. So they establish a cutoff date. Only people whose priority date is before that cutoff can move forward. If demand suddenly surges or they realize they're using visas too quickly, they might have to move the cutoff date backward. That's retrogression. Or, in the worst case, if all visas are projected to be used, a category can become unavailable for the month.
And we keep seeing the same few countries hitting those oversubscribed limits, right? China, India, Mexico, the Philippines. Why them specifically?
It boils down to consistently high demand from those countries relative to the per-country limit set by law. Your chargeability area, usually your country of birth, determines which country's limit you fall under. For those 4 countries, the demand simply outstrips the annual supply year after year, leading to those very long backlogs.
And you mentioned legislation like NACARA and the NDAA affecting numbers. So it's not just demand, but specific laws can also tweak the number of available visas.
Absolutely. Those laws can directly reduce the number of visas available in certain categories, what we saw with NACARA and other workers, or adjust overall limits, like the NDAA's impact on the diversity visa program. They're part of the complex legal framework that shapes the numbers we see in the bulletin each month. They change the size of the pie before it gets sliced.
Fascinating stuff. So wrapping up this deep dive comparing August and September, we saw some really targeted forward movement in family categories, especially for Mexico and the Philippines.
Right, particularly those F2B and F3 advancements.
Then, quite remarkably, total stability in the employment-based dates, which was unexpected for the end of the fiscal year.
Very unusual, yeah. Suggests careful number management.
And a final surge in diversity visa availability for DV 2025 before the big reset for DV 2026.
A clear illustration of that program's annual cycle. It really is a snapshot of a system in constant motion, even when parts of it seem stable. Understanding these shifts, even the small ones, gives a much clearer view of how visa availability works and how it impacts real people.
So for you listening, whether you're navigating this process yourself or just interested, the key takeaway is really the dynamic nature of it all. Staying informed is critical.
Absolutely. For applicants, it highlights the need to watch these bulletins closely and be ready to act the moment your date becomes current or you're eligible to file. Timing can make all the difference.
And for all of us, I think it's a good reminder that behind all these dates, cutoffs, and categories are individuals and families hoping for new beginnings and opportunities. So here's a final thought for you to mull over. As we see these numbers adjust month to month, especially around the transition between fiscal years, how do they reflect larger global trends? Think about patterns of migration, economic factors, maybe even political changes. How are those broader forces mirrored in these seemingly technical visa charts? Something to ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this breakdown of the August and September visa bulletins has given you a clearer perspective. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring.